everyone. My name is Nigel Tierney. I appreciate the intro. I am Irish, by the way, which is why I sound like this. It's not a good excuse for how I look, but just bear with us through the conference. Yeah.
Jared Dawkins, Innovation Program Manager on the Verizon Media side. We're here to talk about entertainment, XR plus 5G. So we'll dive through where entertainment has landed now and what we're looking to do with it with the 5G technology backing it. So I know there's a lot of questions all the time about what's 5G doing for us. Yeah. So we'll address a little bit of that today.
Yeah. So we background of myself. I actually come from feature film background. I was a technical director at DreamWorks Animation, and then I kind of rolled into creative producer route. And something that that was a real pain point working in that industry is just the throughput, right? Typically, it's about 3 to 5 seconds of animation a week, about 3 to 5 years to produce a feature film, about $1 million a minute, right? So an amazing, beautiful, final rendered pixel quality, everything's amazing with that project and product. However, it's just that iterative process is just debilitating. So I'm going to talk a lot about in terms of how content and how we're approaching content at RYOT, and then kind of going in from there. So, but yeah.
Yeah, so Verizon Media, I always address it because it's not well known to the front of mind, right? So Verizon Media was officially branded on January 7th of this year. It is the combination of the AOL and Yahoo properties that Verizon acquired. So Verizon Media includes all the house of brands there. So you have the Yahoos, right, all of them, HuffPost, Engadget, TechCrunch, that's all part of Verizon Media. And RYOT, of course, our immersive content studio is there. So the reach is actually pretty astounding. A lot of us, we don't think about it, but we still use Yahoo Finance, right? Because it's just the default finance app on your iPhone. Yeah, and things like Yahoo Sports and Fantasy are some of the top properties. So we have a very big reach, and we're going to do an intro video here for RYOT.
Yeah, no, and kind of to talk a wee bit about what RYOT is. RYOT serves in kind of 3 different ways within Verizon. We serve as our own horizontal, our own vertical, in that we create our own content, innovative content, whether it's traditional 2D content, VR, animated content.
Oscar-nominated content.
Yes, thank you. We'll do that back and forth. We also serve as a horizontal support structure within the Verizon Media ecosystem. So in those brands, we create immersive and engaging 5G content for Yahoo Sports, HuffPost, etc. And then we also serve kind of as a direct line, a diagonal, I say, for Verizon proper in terms of creating 5G signature experiences. So I'm going to show a wee video just of a glimpse of what we've been up to just recently. So. So you got to see a fair bit of stuff in that video, but and we'll talk to a little bit, but at its core, we think about everything in the form of a CG asset and a CG object and how we can manipulate that across the 5G ecosystem. So we'll dig into that in a wee bit later, but yeah, this is just kind of a snapshot, right, of our brands.
A lot of brands that you already know, but I just want to point out in the top right corner, Yahoo Play. That's one of the newest apps that we've launched, so you should definitely download that, and you get to see some of the magic and hypezilla that RYOT's creating there. So we'll get to that a little later.
So to talk a wee bit about, again, I teased it a wee bit earlier, but traditional content as it's today, especially in the forms of animation, it's obviously you're limited to digital screens. It's armies of creators, as I mentioned, and it's very post-process rendering heavy, which is debilitating from a creative perspective. Like if anyone's ever lit a scene, you set up an environment and you hit render, you go off, have coffee, or you send it over the weekend and you come back and you realize it's just not right, And obviously, that's very frustrating and just it's time consuming. However, what we're seeing lately is obviously the real rise, and I mean, it's not that game engine technology is that new. However, the rapid increasing quality of game engine technology has been quite impressive. I mean, real-time ray tracing, real-time fur, real-time cloth sims. So what you're seeing now is this real high quality, high fidelity level of graphics that you get in real time. So kind of in a way for free, which is huge. So if you think about what we've done at RYOT is we focus on this 3D format and we try and scale with how you manipulate that format, because you have that game engine asset, whether it be something native to Unity or Unreal, then you manipulate it using AI, motion capture. So we've built out a state-of-the-art motion capture stage, a volumetric capture stage as well, that we can manipulate the assets, and then just traditional animation. And so now you can get that real-time animation over the 5G network. For example, recently we just had one of our characters host the new fronts over 5G on stage from LA, and the show New Fronts was in New York. So you can start to see where this stuff is coming. But what really is exciting is, and this is, personally as a creator and as a director, this is honestly what got me really excited to join Verizon and RYOT as a whole, is we're now able to iterate faster, create that content in a meaningful, I'm on set and I'll be like, let's swap in lights, let's make it daytime, let's make it nighttime. I can make all those decisions quickly, faster. And it looks great. It looks really close to final product. And it's really powerful. But then where I see the future of this, and where Verizon and as a whole, and I think a lot of people in this room, right, see this as how you can personalize and consume that content. Because when you have that CG asset, guess what? It can work in VR, it can work in AR, it can work in 2D content. I can literally watch a 2D video and then choose to swap that asset out in real time and project it into my living room. Adding context, whether it be a gimmick or something more meaningful and of utility, that's massive. And I anecdotally like to talk about my son. I have a 5-year-old son that maybe has too much screen time, but when he looks at games, he thinks they're broken when they don't have AR in them. He's like, why can't I stack these blocks in my room? And it's that same analogy that we have now, which is like when people look at a magazine and kids swipe, why doesn't it swipe, right? It's that level, this generation of growth that's really powerful. And then the core part of 5G obviously is this concept of, there's high throughput, low latency, right? That low latency allows for that interactivity, allows me to interact with a mocap-driven actor or an AI-driven performer. But the mech, that's the real kind of special sauce for me, because I think about when we have these small cells, basically the concept of 5G, right? You have all of these small cells that will suddenly have CPUs and GPUs in your neighborhood, right? So now instead of having to send it off to the farm or even just have latency going on, I can be rendering in real time, so my devices can go back to being dumb devices. We don't, because the scale, I can just have a whole bunch of RTX cards or whatever you want rendering that content. Same for your headset devices, etc. Suddenly, the promise of getting to these glasses is much more much more achievable and reasonable and feasible.
And for those that don't know, MEC is mobile edge compute. So that's not only bringing the GPUs closer, but it's changing the way that the compute is happening.
Yeah.
So the processing is not happening all on your phone or your headset. It's splitting the processing so that it's happening on the network. So when the processing can happen on the network, you can have smaller batteries, lighter devices, smaller devices, higher quality content coming to those devices. So we have Iron Man's reality in our reality is kind of how I tell it to people.
I like that. That's cool. And that's a reality we want, right? And it's obviously what you're seeing on the floor, and it's what a lot of people are working towards. So again, to kind of give an overlay of the G's, right? obviously 1G voice, 2G text, 3G data, 4G video. 5G brings a whole lot more to that equation. So obviously, as I said, at its core, 3D formats. Like, nearly think of it as an elemental thing. Because again, if I at DreamWorks, we would create the Shrek movie, right? And when we create the Shrek asset, I'd have to create another Shrek asset for a video game. I had to create another Shrek asset for a McDonald's commercial. Like, there's no use. There was just this waste of energy, again, amazing products at the end of it, but just it wasn't built in at the core in inception. So you think about 3D formats, you can then do all of these things I mentioned: real-time content, personalization, interactivity. Like, we've seen tests today where using AI and deep fakes, you can combine that thing, and my kid could be interacting with Mickey Mouse and his own personalized piece of content. And then obviously this post-smartphone era, right? Moving away from just these devices, right? Where I have our Apple Watches, we have all these headsets. That's really only something that 5G can unlock in its true scale. So, yeah,
Yeah, so who here feels like they have a strong understanding of what 5G is? Raise your hands.
That's good.
Okay.
More than me.
Cool. So the way that we break it down and we reduce it to the synergy between bandwidth and latency, and bringing the power of those two things together, because on the technical side, it's a different frequency. So we're using millimeter waves, so that helps bring down the latency. And then working with providers like Qualcomm with the chipsets and things like that, you now bring it to the devices. So for us, we're capitalizing on this higher bandwidth, lower latency to allow us to provide better services, newer services on top of that.
Yeah, and even if you think on the connectivity side, currently today, 4G LTE, you can have in 1 square kilometer about 10,000 connected devices. With 5G, that grows to 1 million connected devices. So again, IoT, all of these things, automated vehicles, now that's feasible and possible. So pretty exciting on that side. And yeah, you can kind of see that growth, right? It's pretty intense in terms of the amount of devices that we're seeing by 2020. So 4G won't be able for that, unfortunately.
Yeah, we walk through the exhibition hall, right, and you look at all the headsets that are there, and you're bringing it to enterprise. They're bringing it to people working in the field, right? And that's not even counting the consumers. That's not counting the stadiums. That's not counting live events, right?
Yep.
Disney and different places. And you're looking at, something on your wrist, maybe something on your face, and then maybe a screen that's just there to be a bigger screen. So 4G will not be able to support that, 5 years down the road. So even now, if I'm at a stadium and I pull out my phone, I'm like, oh crap, I had 4G LTE, but when I hit call, it just drops to 1. Yeah. It's like 1 tower and you're on 2G, 3G now, but you're like, what's going on? So, the towers, the 5G has so much more bandwidth that now the towers can handle all these devices on network.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's even a frustration for some of the folks in the room. There was an example, U2 had an AR experience during their most recent tour, and people couldn't download it because they just were at the tour. There's thousands of people there, so so they actually later on sent emails hey, download this app, download all the content, and then you're not paying attention at that point. So even from a creator perspective, it's it alleviates so much of those frustrations. And so we could kind of talk through these creation and delivery components, but obviously on the high bandwidth side, not to just read off it, but you can see live streaming, high resolution and fidelity, AR, VR, holograms, all of those things that you love to hear about. And then a really interesting part of that is even thinking about how to stream volumetric content. It's a huge area of interest, right? It's always been the fantasy sci-fi of seeing Princess Leia as a hologram to all the way to having live holographic calls. Yeah,
I was gonna say just to break it down. So volumetric is the real, I guess, the working term of what we have seen in movies as holograms, right? So when you do a volumetric capture, the cameras are around the subject, so you're getting a full 360 capture. You're putting a point cloud and texturing that, and now you can project it. So that could be in a headset, that could be your phone using AR to drop it in front of you. So that's what volumetric is doing, but it's so much data, you know, that's not doable on 4G. Like if we have a big app, like if you open up Fortnite, for example, right now, if you play it on cellular, it takes like 6 minutes to just load because it's 2 gigabytes each time you open up Fortnite. Yeah. So we're becoming more mobile as well.
Yeah, and all of these, there's a lot of amazing partners, whether it's Evercoast, Microsoft, Intel, that are doing that amazing capture, but you know, the lowest end of that is 7 gigabytes a second up to 2 terabytes a second. So not only just streaming that raw data, but using AI to process and do smart operations to that content before it even sends it. So, because you know, as much as we're up here talking about 5G, 5G isn't going to get 2 terabytes a second over any network. So, so yeah, that low latency again, that interactivity is important, but also think about location-based experiences. So again, if you're tracking a device now and your GPS, there's a lot of things that are smart in determining where you are physically located. However, with 5G and small cells, you'll get that down to millimeters of accuracy. So again, if you're thinking about experiences around that, that's something really exciting. On the real-time, oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's fine. MEC, location specificity, network slicing. So mobile edge compute, like we mentioned before, you know, you're taking the compute and putting on the network. Location specificity, you know, these things work together beyond just XR as well. So you look at autonomous vehicles, you look at drones. So these things are at bay, like they've been working. So when 5G gets to the point where it becomes the grid, now these devices can be safer. They can move around safely and communicate with each other in real time, right? Because you think about us as a human, like our ability to process, oh, this thing jumped out in the road. I need to swerve. I need to stop. Do I just take my foot off the gas for a little bit because they're passing? The cars need to process this in real time. So 5G helps enable that real time processing because it could be combined with the network. And slicing.
Yeah, I mean, slicing is, you know, this really, like this other process of, like, as you said, like you have 4G and you actually look like you have all the bars, but once that data.
Once you hit download or open the app.
It's not actually allocated properly. So using this new technology of kind of network slicing and really allocating, you know, levels of the bandwidth for certain pieces of content, so to speak, it can really engage and ensure fidelity that, like, you can text and call in the case of an emergency, you know, while everyone else is on their Snapchat, etc. So, but this is kind of one of the, you know, I pull this up, and you can kind of just read this, but this is a general hypothesis I think everyone here feels in some way and form about, I mean, in terms of what we're obviously doing in augmented reality, but this, for us, is 5G really unlocks that. So for AR, for XR, all of those Rs, as well as real-time 2D content. 2D content is definitely not going away. It's something that still is high quality scale. And so how we think about that in Verizon Media in particular is very important to our business. But yeah, 5G is an incremental multiplier, not an incremental, an exponential multiplier on enabling all of these experiences.
Yeah.
So chat a wee bit about actual kind of the overall idea of 5G, a wee bit and how Verizon plays into space. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about actually how we're using it today. As JR mentioned, we actually have this new app called Yahoo Play. And one of the first shows that RYOT has contributed to it is this character called Hypezilla. He may or may not be based on my purchasing habits. Short on this content side, hype culture is basically people who obsess over sneakers and stuff like that. And it's a $34 billion a year industry. Anyway, what we're seeing here, though, is real-time performance capture of our performer and broadcasting that data in real time. So what you might be like, okay, that's cool. Maybe you've seen mocap before. However, you've seen a lot of cleanup on mocap, and you've seen a lot of post-rendering. What you're seeing here is real-time fur, real-time cloth, and scale, right? So I want to get this I want to get it on Yahoo Play weekly, daily, you know, to get this content in and out, has to be cheap, right? So thinking about the whole democratization of AR, I mean, animation, this is kind of that next step. I mean, you know, any iPhone users, right? iPhone X, what Apple did very intelligently was bought the same technology that most studios were using. We use that at DreamWorks for facial capture, and suddenly democratized it and gave it away. Well, people use it for animojis, which are great, but that's actually a really powerful piece of tech that, when using rendering capabilities, can puppet a character like this. So this is one show that's actually live right now in Yahoo Play. As I said, he was the character that showed up at New Fronts and gave away a $5,000 pair of sneakers and stuff like that. So it's fun. The next piece, there you go, was more and focused on previs. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with this project I directed and produced called Earth. It was with rapper Lil Dicky. We had 32 artists on there. It was all with Leonardo DiCaprio, benefiting a collection of charities provided by LDF. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a wee bit risque, so you know, we do have a children's version out there as well. But what I wanted, my challenge was, I wanted to get a Pixar, DreamWorks, Disney level quality of animation for a music video. Cost prohibitive. If I just said $1 million a minute, typically, you know, this is a 7-minute video. It's not many music videos that you're going to be spending $7 to $10 million on. So one of the things that we really thought about is leveraging both motion capture, 5G, and game engine technology. In this case, it was Unreal. We really brought in like scale down on the production process for actually creating this piece of video. There was 60 characters, which is more than the average feature film, because we had Ed Sheeran as a koala, we had Justin Bieber as a baboon, we had Ariana Grande, and every character only had two or 3 seconds on screen.
You had Kevin Hart as Kanye West.
Yeah, Kevin Hart played Kanye West. And so we wanted that quality and fidelity, but that throughput we got that knocked that video out in 4 months, which wouldn't have been possible before.
4 months.
Yeah.
For this animation.
Yeah.
Is incredible.
So just want to talk to, like, in terms of that scale and that quality. So check out the video if you haven't seen it, because every view goes to charity. All the proceeds benefit charity. The last piece and sample I wanted to talk through is just something that we're currently working on. It's this location-based experience that we're really super excited to have partnered with Time Magazine. Time have been working with the Martin Luther King estate for the last 2 years in acquiring the rights to the famous I Have a Dream speech. And what we are doing is recreating the March on Washington in VR. And so you have a personalized real-time experience. So what you're seeing here is actually just what we just recently shot, where this is the only certified Martin Luther King impersonator by the estate. He's performed this for 20 years now, and he goes around the world doing this speech. So using facial, so we're not only just doing motion capture here, we're doing a heavy amount of facial capture and AI to really emulate. So because even though he's an impersonator, the way he smiles isn't the way Martin Luther King would smile, right? So leveraging that one-to-one and how we can leverage that is really important, because Jake Sally, who's on my team and is leading this, he has a great quote that there's 1,000 ways to do this wrong and only one way to do this right. So we really want to focus on making sure it's the highest quality. We're actually working with Digital Domain as a partner here on this. They're an amazing, if they created Thanos and all the other very powerful DigiDoug. I don't know if anyone got to see the DigiDoug talk, but just to be able to capture things like subdermal, you know, when he's blushing, and you know, all of those subtleties and minutia, but in real time. That's the, again, that stuff is, yeah. So, and you're going, the creative, by the way, is you're going to go in VR and you're actually going to experience the march, and then you'll end up on the dais with Dr. King, and we have Viola Davis is attached to produce, and it's really, we're really excited about it, but again, only possible in a 5G world, so.
Yeah, I guess to summarize, you know, entertainment, XR plus 5G, you know, it equals personalization on a new level and immersion that we haven't seen before. It's a thing that folks have dreamed to do and can now do. You know, you can step into new worlds, you can be in different places with this new platform.
Yeah, and last thing on that is like all of that personalization, you can see the scale, something for mobile, something for kind of broad 2D, and something that, with that Hypezilla, by the way, you'll be able to throw them into AR and experience the show in AR. With that, obviously that's VR, very high fidelity, high rendered. We're also tracking your eyes, so that at the very end, Dr. King will give you a brief look as he leaves, the dais. Stuff like that, that's really impactful, really powerful. Because at the end of the day, this technology is amazing, but the story is key, right? So that whole cliche is actually like, it's really real. So, and that's why too, we think about the right tool for the right job and for the right story.
Yeah.
But you can see, like, and we could go through examples all day of what we're doing, but I just wanted to kind of showcase, we wanted to showcase a variety of what we're touching on, just to hopefully maybe inspire as well in how you're approaching, there's creators both on the technology side or on the content side, how you can actually engage with that.
And just one quick plug, if you're interested in working with us, if you're interested in learning how to build on 5G, Verizon has a Build on 5G challenge. So go to 5glabs.com. You can sign up and apply for the Build on 5G challenge and work with us in building this future. We're not going to be able to build all the pieces ourselves, but we're happy to invite you to come and work with us.
Yeah, that's what the stage and everything we've built in Playa is even for, and there's a whole bunch of others around the US to be able to be platforms to help creators.
All right, so we're at time, well, we're over time.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone. If you want to chat, you can find us outside.
Yeah. Appreciate it.